Hi, everyone. This is the Culture Study Podcast, and I'm Anne Helen Peterson.
And I'm Julia Whelan. I am an audiobook narrator, an author, and the founder of Audiobrary.
Okay, so we are recording this on the day after Spotify users got like their year-end reports thing.
Yeah.
And there's this new metric. It's audiobook listening hours, and you were the most listened to author.
Narrator, yes.
Narrator, sorry, yes. You were the most listened to narrator.
I think I probably got some of those hours are, yes, from books that I also wrote, but mostly it's Taylor Jenkins Reid and Emily Henry.
When you find out about stuff like that, what's your reaction? Were you like, yeah.
No, it never is because, first of all, because there's a lot of like massive books or even in genres that I don't do. And I kind of assumed, I thought that like some of the romance dudes would probably take that prize. First of all, because of volume. These guys do like 70 books a year and those listeners are rabid. And so I didn't think that this was, first of all, I didn't even know it was a metric because it wasn't until this year.
Totally.
And so, I think it's gratifying and surprising because I have cut so much back on the number of books that I do. But those books are huge. And I still think the scales were tipped a little bit by The Women, which was such a juggernaut from last year, but people are still listening to it this year. So it was just I think it's a collection of Emily's backlist, Taylor's backlist, Kristen's backlist, the new V.E. Schwab, it's just been a busy few years.
Yeah, totally. And I love that even when you are trying to do slightly less, like the accumulated backlist can also still power you into that position.
Absolutely.
The way that you got into doing this work is really interesting to me. And especially the way that you got into doing it, like actually being like, okay, this is what it's going to be now. So can you give us just a little overview?
Yeah. So I was a child actor. When I went to college, I studied creative writing. And at my graduation, one of my best friend's mothers came up to me and she happened to work for an audiobook company. And she's the one who said, I think you might be really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about doing audiobooks? And very much like Maggie Smith in Downton Abbey saying, what is a weekend?
Yeah, definitely.
I said, what is an audiobook?
No.
And I had no idea. I mean, this was 2008.
Yeah.
And I'd been in a stuffy liberal arts college for 4 years and like, we don't, audio is beneath us. So I had no idea what it was. But after like a year of being back in LA, and it was 2008, graduated into a recession, and I was tutoring to make ends meet and doing on camera auditions and trying to get that career going again. But it was like such a different business than the one I left 4 years prior.
Oh yeah.
That I emailed Laura and I said, so what's this thing? I like read books into a microphone and you pay me? Is that what happens? And so I put together a demo for her. And this is the happy accident of this career is that first of all, she was right in that it happened to be the two things I love coming together, and like the center of that Venn diagram of performance and books is audiobooks, and it could not have been, it was like designed in a lab for me.
Yep.
But also the other happy accident of timing here is that at the moment I was getting into audiobooks, YA as a genre was booming.
Yeah.
And they didn't have young voices for it. Everyone who had been doing this job had been doing it for 20 or 30 years back when they were actually like splicing tape together. And they needed people who could convincingly sound like 15-year-old pixies. So I come into the industry at that moment and spent the first few years doing a lot of YA and kind of getting my feet wet and learning how to do the job. Like it's a job you can only learn by doing. And I started out, I did a couple of books that first year and then a few more. And I remember thinking if I could just do a book a month, that would help take like the pressure off of the tutoring schedule. And, it just started to snowball.
I have a very distinct memory of checking out an audiobook of Emma from the library when I was going back and forth between Eugene, where I was going to grad school, in Seattle. So going past where you grew up in Salem. And like it was on tape. It was on tapes. And that's what like made it viable in my 2001 Toyota Corolla, is that I could put it into the tape machine, right? But it had this there's a sound that I think anyone who has listened to these older audiobooks, like everything feels gothic. Like, it doesn't matter where, like, what time period, like, everything is a little gothic in these audiobooks, and there's, like, chimes, oftentimes that are just very
Also, you would have, I remember, and I still do this occasionally because some books still go to CD, but you used to have to record, this is the end of CD 6.
Yes, yes. Oh gosh, like that sound right there. It's just so.
This is the end of disc 6. Disc
And then
6. Yeah.
at that time also was the first time I got an iPod, and then trying to figure out, okay, so like maybe downloading an audiobook would take up my entire iPod.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's all you had room for.
This morning, I was just in the PRH offices, and they have this beautiful new audio level, and they've got their studios in there and great kind of communal workspace. And in there, they have one of the old, I didn't even know they did this. Audible used to send you a player back in the late 90s, like proto Audible was you would sign up for Audible and they would mail you a little player. And then you would have to put the files from, like, transfer them like an old iPod from your computer onto the player.
Oh my gosh.
So they provided you a player because the technology did not exist yet. Yeah.
Wow.
I had no idea. That was new to me. I did not know that lore.
And they have it, like, do they have one there that you can see?
Yeah, they had the box. I think the actual device is, I think I didn't look in the box. I think she said it wasn't there, but they have the actual original box of this player.
Okay, so we got such good questions for you. I cannot
wait
to dive into
them.
Gosh. And I think this is one of those jobs where, like, people are super curious about it, but also just don't know that much about it, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk.
That's why I wrote a book about it.
Exactly. Exactly. You're like,
I was getting the same questions all the time. And I was like, there's no representation of this job in media. Like, we all have a passing understanding of what a detective does or what an ER doctor does because we watch them on TV. And there's like nothing like that for audiobooks. No one knows how the sausage is made.
I feel like if there's ever, if they make it into like a rom-com, right? Like a movie rom-com, what's going to happen? Are they going to make it too glamorous? Like, I feel about this about like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, about how like Kate Hudson is like the most glamorous journalist ever.
Yes,
like, has the best job.
This is why I've had some interest from film and TV for Thank You for Listening. And of course they want you to just give it to them. And I'm like, in this case, no. I'm not saying never. Like, I'm not saying I would never just offload one of my books and take the money and run. But in this particular situation, like, you really need someone who knows audiobooks to like help you paint that world. And I'm not going anywhere. Sorry.
Just for people who don't know, like, when you adapt something, sometimes you just sell the rights and you're like, go with God, do whatever you want. Yeah. And then sometimes you're like, and also I will be a consultant.
Right. Like, and also I'm going to make this one because you're just not there. You could get it so wrong.
So wrong. So, okay, let's start with the questions. They're going to lead us in so many interesting directions. So we're going to talk about like your specific work, but also about the industry and some of the work that you're doing to try to change the industry. Our first question is about the medium itself, and it comes from Susan.
I think some books are better as audiobooks and some are better read, and it can really change how you experience a book and how much you like one. Do you agree? And if so, what qualities do you think make a book better suited for audio versus print?
Oh, that's a really astute, thoughtful question. And I actually appreciate it because I ask myself this every day because I did start my own audio publishing company. So in trying to decide which books we take on, now I have a different paradigm for this. And for me personally, just because of, to me, books live and die by the narrator. So we don't acquire a book unless I already have a narrator in mind when I read it. Like every other publisher, because they're a publisher, they have this book and then they have to go make an audio version of it, or they sell the subrights to someone else to go make it. And so their first and foremost consideration has nothing to do with audio, but mine does. And so I think the books that work really well in audio are the ones that are very voicey.
Yep.
So whether it's a very strong first person or just great dialogue, banter, when you can get the rhythm on the page to come through and you can identify clearly what the voice is and then match that voice with a narrator, that's when it really succeeds. The other thing is there's this I think duet or multicast is very popular right now, where
Yep.
you've got, so it sounds more like a radio play.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in those situations, I mean, something like Daisy Jones and the Six is like purpose built for audio, where the conceit is it's an
Yep.
oral history. So when you're able to do that and make it sound like a podcast, that's just a really vibrant listening experience. Notoriously, the things that don't translate well to audio are like, there's this statistic floating around that's saying 95% of books ever written like don't have audio versions. And that sounds terrible, but remember that a lot of those books are like academic texts where there's graphs and and maps and 14 footnotes on a page, and like some books should just not be translated in that way.
100%. When was it? Like 2021, there were so many audio startups, and I think you know
Yes.
this from your involvement in this landscape. And one of them approached me and was like, and a couple other newsletter writers, and was like, "Can we just pay you this flat fee for us to just make your newsletters into audio content?" And I was like, sure, whatever. And like, and they did use, obviously they use like actual narrators and first person essays, like it kind of worked. But then I do a ton of like in-depth Q&As with academics.
Yeah.
It's not the forum. Like
It's not.
It was so weird.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all about accessibility. And so there's
Yep.
ways to obviously, just to have an audio version out there for people, of course,
Yep.
but it's not going to make for a compelling listening experience.
So a friend of mine from BuzzFeed actually just released a book that is audio only. In terms of like from the beginning, the way that they thought of it was as audio only. And I think sometimes we might, like, this is where the semantics of what we call things is really interesting, because that is, like you said, like, it's like, it's an audio play.
Yes,
Maybe.
right. It's a different, I mean, I had an interesting experience with that myself, where in my second book, in Thank You for Listening, which is about audiobooks, right? It's about audiobook narrators, and they are recording a specific book in that book. And I decided to go and write the book within a book from that
Yes.
book. But I did it to live up to the promise of the premise, which was it was meant to be an 8-episode audio series.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it that way. And writing something with it's now sold print, but like I just sold it, the print rights. But at the time, I didn't think it would be in print. And so I was writing it just with the idea that it would be for audio. And as a result, it's the closest thing to a play I've ever written. It's a small cast. It's contained. It is just dialogue and, it's relationship centric. And it was very fun because I had the narrators' voices in my head when I was writing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think not like most people who only write for the page, which is me, like that is not a skill that I have, but you have really refined that skill through the process of turning things into like, okay, what narration actually works in this format?
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you feel about then turning it into something that people read on the page?
I don't know. We're going to find out. I mean, because when I did it, and I did it to launch Audiobrary as well. So it was like these two major projects kind of coming to fruition at the same time, and they were tied into each other in a lot of ways. And it was kind of surprising to me when the first request I got was, well, is there an ebook? And I was like, what do you mean there's people who don't listen to audio? And it turns out there are. And there's even fans of mine who don't listen to audio because they just know me as an author. And I realized I kind of had this like, well, duh moment where it was like, I still want people to be able to enjoy this story, but it's just not the way that I conceived of it.
Right.
I mean, it's written as 8 episodes. Like, what?
Yeah, what does that turn into?
What do I do?
Right.
It's like 8 very long chapters in this book now.
The Culture Study Podcast is sponsored by Mosh. So Mosh sent me a bunch of new flavors the other day. I really liked the chocolate chip cookie. I know that Melody also likes, I think, the peanut chocolate chip. They're fantastic. They're the perfect thing when you're between meals and you just need something that's like actually going to tide you over in time for lunch and not make you feel like you're even hungrier than before. The good thing about Mosh is it's more than just your average protein bar. Each one is made with ingredients that support brain health like lion's mane, collagen, and omega-3s. Unlike most protein bars, Mosh bars also actually taste great. And like I said, they come in a bunch of really good flavors, including chocolate chip cookie, hazelnut chocolate chip, peanut chocolate chip. There's a blueberry one that I love. And Mosh also donates a portion of all proceeds from your order to fund gender-based brain health research through the Women's Alzheimer Movement. If you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and your brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/culture to save 20% off, plus free shipping on the bestsellers trial pack or the new plant-based trial pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on either the plant-based trial pack or the plant-based trial pack at moshlife.com/culture. Thank you, Mosh, for sponsoring this episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Ollie. So elsewhere in this podcast, we had to pause and start recording again because Bev, who had been sequestered in the bedroom while I was recording, inched up behind the laptop and shut it down, just closed down the laptop screen with her paw. What I think she wanted was some Ollie. Bev loves food, but is particular about food. And even though we have like amazing dry food, she just loves just a tiny bit of wet food on the top. And if you don't give it to her, she just stares at you until you do. And part of that is because she has become obsessed with Ollie. Dogs just love the taste of Ollie. They are human-grade recipes backed by vet nutritionists, crafted with culinary experts, and are devoured by every dog that I have ever given some to. I have some extra packs that I've given to my friends' dogs, and they have also become obsessed. I'm like their favorite dog auntie now. They're also perfectly portioned so that depending on the size, like Melody's dog Polly only eats like a little corner of hers, and my dogs would eat 17 if I let them. But whatever is left over goes in this very cute Tupperware that they come in, nice and clean, so you don't have your dog food touching all of the stuff in the rest of your fridge. Your dog's well-being starts with their food, and that's why Ollie delivers fresh, human-grade food that your dog will love. Head to ollie.com/culture, tell them all about your dog, and use code CULTURE to get 60% off your welcome kit when you subscribe today. Plus, they offer a happiness guarantee on the first box, so if you're not completely satisfied, you'll get your money back. That's OLLIE.com/culture and enter code CULTURE to get 60% off your first box. I've seen a lot of different authors really identify, like authors of profiles of you, identify Gone Girl as like your pivot moment. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's accurate?
I think that's accurate for a number of reasons. So it's not the first book that I did that got attention, but that was such a juggernaut.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenon. And the timing of that book with the fact, like the number of people that tell me that's the first audiobook they ever listened to.
Yep.
Because Audible was really just getting going at the time. No longer a player, no longer a separate device. You could have it on your phone. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people who had never listened to an audiobook before, the convenience of suddenly being able to just like, okay, I'll give this Audible thing a shot.
Right.
Was a tipping point.
And that the structure of the book works so well.
So well in audio.
Right.
So well. Yes.
I think that's why it also worked well as a movie in a lot of ways too.
Actually, a funny story about that. So Gillian told me years ago that as she was writing the screenplay, she was listening to the audiobook. Because for her, which I think is, I just like as a writer, I love this idea because she said that in knowing that she was adapting it, she wanted to have someone else's interpretation of it in her head as she was writing the screenplay.
Right.
And I went, that's so smart. Because it's like, what stands out to you when you're listening to it? You know, what are the parts that really stay with you? You have to have that distance as a writer from like, okay, this is a separate thing than me now. This is its own material. And how am I going to adapt it, essentially?
Yeah. And I think that's why not all adaptations necessarily work when the author themselves is doing the adaptation because there isn't that distance. But I think it did work in that case really well. Our next question builds on this, and it comes from Heather.
How does Julia choose which audiobooks she wants to perform and which to listen to? She's a narrator I look for when deciding what to listen to next, both because of her performance and I think she has really good taste. Her name as a narrator is like a famous book club sticker, Oprah, Reese, Jenna, etc., for me for her audiobooks.
That is so sweet. That is very dangerous. So, okay, I think there's two halves to my career. So the first half of it was coming from an actor mentality of scarcity.
Totally.
Of if they give you work, you have to take it. So I said yes to everything and promptly burnt myself out. I was doing 70 books a year. After I wrote my Oxford year while doing that, so I wrote that book fast. I had to write that book fast, and I was recording that many books. I almost had a breakdown, and I said I would never write another book under those conditions. And because I wanted to write another book, I had to change the conditions. So I started cutting back on the number of books I would do. And then I started having a kind of metric by which I choose books.
Yeah.
Some of it is obviously existing relationships, like authors who I know and love. Some of it is authors who are kind of on my own personal wish list that if I see an opportunity come in to do one of their books, I jump at it. Mm-hmm. I like to diversify genre. So I'm a generalist. So sometimes you get into a rut, especially after Gone Girl, for instance. I did every domestic thriller and I was like, God, what I would do for a romance. So I like to bounce around, and if I feel like I've been too long in one genre, I will pivot. But my main criteria, and it's so basic, is if I read the blurb, because I don't have time to read the books before I say yes, and they don't have time to wait for me to read the books before I say yes. So I turn on my reader brain and I say, if I read this flap copy in a bookstore, would I pay $27 for a hardcover?
Yeah.
Like, am I intrigued? Do I want to read it? And that's really it.
First, can I say that you burning yourself out and then also deciding that you wanted to write a book while you were doing that is so classic millennial graduate into the recession behavior.
I know. The grandkids are going to be like, why is grandma always so intense? And it's like, you weren't there. You don't know.
Right?
Gig worker.
Gig worker. And then now trying to figure out like a way to better distribute profits in a way that is non-exploitative.
Right. So I don't have to do that anymore. Yes, I know.
And trying to make it better for other people instead of, I think oftentimes the line is like, well, this is what I did.
Right.
So
you should have to do it too.
You should also suffer this way. And you're like, no, I don't.
I don't really want to do that. No.
No, that makes total sense, especially since not only do you have to spend many, many hours reading it, you read it a couple times yourself before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you know where it's going, so that you're not like surprised on the page.
Right. I can't be the person surprised. You're supposed to be the person surprised listening. I can't be surprised when I'm recording.
So I've had to record a couple of my books and I hate it. And it's like one of those classic, like it emphasizes that people should be well paid for this job. And they shouldn't be me because this is not my job. But at the same time, like I should be so familiar with the words, but because like when you're writing a book, and I'm sure you've had this experience too, you get so sick of those words that you don't want to look at them. So it goes in and then you're like, oh, these fuckers again?
Because you bring all the trauma with you to the thing where you're like, not this bitch. It's I had a moment was recording my Oxford year because that book was kind of written fast and it has an interesting origin story, but I was recording it and that's the moment that the debut novelist imposter syndrome decided to kick in. And so I was like, this is terrible. This is horrible. What is even a sentence? And I started like trying to edit it and my editor was like, oh no, stop. The book is done. Stop. You can't change anything else.
I tried to do that too.
Oh God, it's impossible. It really was like, it was the second guessing and I was so not even focused on performance at that point. I just was like, this book, oh my God, what a nightmare.
I'm sure you actually find this too. Like I always find like one little typo or like just something.
I keep a list usually. I mean, sometimes it's things that I actually have to, if it's just like an obvious typo, I'll just read it, I'll record it. But sometimes when something is a reiteration or like it needs to be clarified, I have to send those to the producer. And then if I'm friends with the author, I will usually just like have an open text thread where I'm like, page 38, check it out. And yeah, so you catch a lot. I mean, it really is the last line of defense on the typo situation.
Yeah, there were a couple that I think we caught just in time in various books that I've done. Can you confirm to me my thinking on this, which is that part of the reason that they get like books like the ones that I have written that are not like they're nonfiction and they're not massive books, but it's a lot cheaper to dangle a little bit of money in front of the author
Hmm.
instead of
Also,
paying it.
yeah, well, yeah, although it's not like narrators get paid all that much. I mean, I think the author contracts, depending on which publisher you're with and whatever, but they'd probably spend almost the same on you that they would spend on a narrator.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
but the difference is that they with nonfiction, I think listeners tend to like having the author be the
Yeah,
narrator. So I think it's like part of the marketing tie-in decisions.
totally.
So tends to make sense. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's always the best decision for the quality of the performance in the book, but for other reasons, it can make sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I also like I have a friend who was super nervous because they were quote unquote trying out for their own nonfiction audiobook. And I was
Yeah.
like, they're just making sure that you're decent.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're just making sure that there's not some like unlistenable quality to your voice. But I also think that's changed in recent years. And I think it's because
Mm,
everyone is so used to podcasts now
yeah.
that the idea of like what even is a professional voice has changed.
Yes. That is such a good point. I also get fewer complaints about my vocal fry.
Yeah.
I think that because like
Yeah.
people are more used to different types of
Mm-hmm.
voices in their ears, that it's not just like either audiobook performance, like we were saying, like the
Or
Gothic
NPR.
style or
Yeah.
NPR voice. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Okay, now we're going to do this question from Joy.
What's it like from your perspective as a voice actor to read at a true one-time speed for an audiobook? Is there an industry standard pace? Is it hard to slow down? Or is that genuinely a pace that you would read out loud at? And then as a listener, do you have opinions on how some people listen to books super fast and some people listen at one-time speed? Personally, I feel like a 1.5 to a 1.6 sounds the most natural. But for some audiobook narrators, I slow it down to 1.25.
Okay, this is such a bag of questions that all of them are tripwires, but let me just I actually love this because I love to explain the thinking here. So,
Mm,
first of all, I do think audiobook pacing has changed over the years. When I was starting out, and you can actually hear this in Gone Girl, I was told explicitly to read slowly.
mm-hmm.
And I pushed back on that because I said, this is a psychopath whose brain is moving at a pace that she does not think or speak slowly.
Yeah.
And I felt very hogtied by having to slow down for quote unquote audiobook speed.
Yeah.
Again, I think this has to do with the proliferation of audio media where people are just talking faster and they're listening faster. And this TikTok generation that like can listen to stuff at warp speed that I can't even hear, but that's what they're used to. And so I think that we have a generational gap in
Mm-hmm.
listeners. And so that's kind of number one, is that I do think things have changed. I am very conscious of that now, where I think my own rhythm naturally has sped up.
Yep.
But it is also the speed at which I read. I'm not intentionally slowing down. That is the speed at which I am able to process the words that my brain is seeing on the paper, and then they're coming out of my mouth in some kind of sensical order.
Right.
So I'm not at this point listening to anyone who's telling me to slow down, but I also can't go any faster.
Yeah.
As far as listening speed goes, I can't listen to anything above 1.0 because I don't like the distortion in the voices. That's just
Yes.
the audio critic in me.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate the fact that, especially for anyone with any kind of neurodivergence, the audio has to go at the speed of their brain or they're going to get distracted. So I've stopped fighting this. And like, I think people should just listen at whatever speed they want to, but I can't listen to my voice at Minnie Mouse speed. It just drives me nuts.
It also, to me, it makes it sound more like AI, which is
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
sound that
you strip out a lot of the cadence of natural human speech. You're missing breath at that point. And yes, that's when it can absolutely sound robotic. But I had this kind of like crisis a few years ago. My best friend was visiting, and someone had shared a video from, I think, an Emily Henry book, but the clip was sped up. And the comments were like, oh God, she's so good. And I was like, this is unlistenable. What are they talking about? And I told my friend that, like, I had this light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, what if all of my success, what if my entire career is owing to the fact that I still sound okay at 2 times speed? And she was like, you need to go touch grass. You are out of your mind. Like, put your phone down, walk away. So I was like, what if they don't actually like me? They just like the way I sound at 2 times speed. She's like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I cannot imagine. I don't listen to anything at 2 times speed. Melody, do you listen to anything at 2 times speed?
No.
I will bump up podcasts sometimes when they're poorly edited. I will bump up TikTok videos because just people talking extemporaneously.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I press and hold a lot.
Exactly. Can be painful. But when it's actually like crafted, when it is a written text and I am performing it or listening to someone else perform it, no, I would like it at the speed that God intended.
Okay, our next question is something that I think people would love to hear more about, and that I had a great audiobook coach, even though I hated every minute of it. This question comes from Elizabeth.
Are there directors and/or editors for these productions? Do authors offer pronunciation guides? I listen to a lot of audiobooks and feel like every single one has at least 2 to 3 words mispronounced. Often they're common words that maybe we don't say aloud regularly. Sometimes it's uncommon words from another language. I listen in English. But isn't anyone helping the narrators out? I guess I'm being picky here, but occasionally it's a word that is repeated throughout the book, and I confess that at least once I've abandoned an otherwise great audiobook because I can't take it. Is it that recordings are made and distributed that quickly? Is there no one listening to the recording before it goes out? I want to be clear, I'm not blaming the narrators. To me, it's the audio equivalent of a typo. But I'm annoyed that no one is looking out for them here.
Me too. So, again, I have a lot of opinions about this. So to understand how production works, a lot of the time it is just the narrator in the booth by themselves.
Yeah.
And we are responsible for the most part, usually, for our own research. And so you have to have the kind of analytical reading skill as a narrator to have enough curiosity around certain things to not make assumptions. So when you're reading a text, I pull out everything because I have been burned before. If a character's name is Tara, I'm going to ask the author how they want that pronounced. I'm not going to just like swing and miss on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a director involved. So at some of the bigger publishers, there are still occasionally directors who should be doing that. There is always an editor editing the stuff. And there is also typically a QC round. So when something is mispronounced, it is a failure at like every checkpoint. But that said, again, these are not things that they train you in. Research is not something that I think it should be something that we train everyone who works in audiobooks on. But sometimes things slip through the cracks. So here's a couple of examples. I got feedback within like probably a couple of weeks of The Women by Kristen Hanna being on sale that I had said Korsman instead of Corman. And I went, that's weird, but okay. So I emailed the producer at Macmillan immediately and I was like, apparently I mispronounced this word and there's like 8 instances in the book. Can I do pickups and can we push it out? And so I did, and we pushed it out and we fixed it. But I was sitting there going, why would I have, that's not something I would assume. And I've also had that book the word in other books. And how did this happen? And there is a director and an editor and I did the pronunciation guide. So I went back and I looked at the pronunciation guide. And sure enough, I had linked to Merriam-Webster saying Korsman with an S. That's how it's pronounced in Merriam-Webster.
Yeah.
So sometimes the proper pronunciation is not the common pronunciation.
Right.
And I get these when I was working at Autumn, which was the app that put long-form journalism on audio, and I was in charge of research and pronunciation stuff. We'd get a lot of people emailing in being like, you mispronounced this word. And I would go back to them and say, I'm so sorry to report, but you have been mispronouncing this word your entire life. And here's the evidence for that. And I still get that occasionally. This just happened. I just got an email from someone who brought up a mispronunciation and I had to say it's actually not a mispronunciation. I'm sorry, but this is the correct pronunciation.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And it also like speaks to me to the way that like pronunciation is a living thing, right?
Yes, and it's regional
Yes.
and it's cultural,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of considerations to be made. I mean, even at Autumn, one of the first decisions we kind of had to make was how we were going to pronounce Kyiv, the
Yeah.
Ukrainian city, and it was like, especially once the war started, we were like, we're not going to default to the Russian pronunciation. We're going to default to the Ukrainian pronunciation.
Yep.
And then what is that? And it's a choice, and it can be very complicated, but the point is these things do happen. They slip through. Sometimes they can be corrected, sometimes they can't, but I understand why it's annoying.
Yeah.
It's annoying to me.
I'll say from the less professional standpoint, like when I have done it, there's a director who is in the booth, like going through with you. And anytime you even slightly flub a word, they ask you to say it again. And anytime you come up against like, let's say like the words that I always struggled with were like the last names of authors whose work I had cited, who there would never be a real reason for me to like know how to say their last name, exactly how their last name should be pronounced. And so we would look up like in the moment, go on YouTube, find a time when they're saying it out loud. Like Melody does this for me now, like when we're doing the podcast, like we come up with how to pronounce it. And so there is like this work is happening. And I think if it's not happening, sometimes it is like a typo, but there are people looking out for this.
There is, and a lot of it is just a volume problem. Yeah. Like there is so much audio production going on, and there is, like I said, when the onus of research falls on the narrator, which is what we did at Audiobook, we took that off of the narrator. I was like, we can create a kind of Bible of pronunciations. If this is news, it's journalism. Like, let's just create a compendium. We called it the Great Document. Which were the pronunciations for things that would come up repeatedly in news articles. But I don't think there's any other publisher that has that, and they should, because this is like at this point 40 years of like lost research of all the pronunciations we could have in some kind of archive that we don't.
Yeah, it's the audio version of a style guide.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And it allows you to default to that. And
there are certain words I would not have known. Like I didn't know before I started doing this job that the word that looks like timber is timbre. Yeah. And that tousled is tousled. Like there are certain things I would not know before I started doing this job, and I had a director say very kindly, no.
Yeah, that's useful. This episode of the Culture Study Podcast is brought to you by Graza. So for this last weekend, Charlie and I made a chili verde with pork butt. And to make chili verde, you have to put a whole bunch of pork in a pot and sear it first, and you need some olive oil to get that process started. And of course, I used my Graza extra virgin olive oil. I love it. It's my olive oil of choice. It's affordable. You can get it any grocery store. You can get it at Costco now. It's always fresh. They pick, press, and bottle all their olives in the same season. You can even see the harvest date on every bottle. I personally love the squeeze bottle. It's just so much more convenient and less messy than like the gloppy tins or giant plastic containers. There's the sizzle. That's for everyday cooking. That's what I used for the chili verde. And then they also have the drizzle, which is a super punchy, flavorful finishing oil that's great for dipping bread or for a salad dressing, or I don't know, some weirdos can put it on ice cream. It's supposed to be really good. It's seriously my favorite olive oil to use. Right now, you can get 10% off your first order of any olive oil on the Graza site. But I wholeheartedly recommend the Graza Duo. You'll receive 2 bottles of extra virgin olive oil, sizzle for cooking and drizzle for finishing, with an extra kick of bold flavor. So head to graza.co and use code CULTURESTUDY to get 10% off and get cooking on your next chef quality meal. Today's episode is sponsored by OneSkin. Last week, Charlie had to record a podcast at 3 a.m. He was recording with someone who is in Australia, and that was the only time that they could record. And like he had been trying really hard to get this interview. And he was saying to me, he was like, I have these dark circles when I like wake up in the morning and try to record, because his podcast is video. And I was like, oh, I have the solution for you. So I told him when he woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to first put on his OneSkin, just like general moisturizer, and then to put on his OneSkin under eye cream, and it would just Like his face would just look a lot better. I also had him put on just a tiny bit of tinted moisturizer, just a tiny bit. He looked great. 3 a.m. Fantastic. I love OneSkin. I mean, this is a great endorsement. It does not smell pungent in any way. Like if someone is not into floral smells or just like distinctive smells of the stuff that they put on their face, or if they're new to putting stuff on their face, like Charlie, or like a lot of people that I know, OneSkin is such a great place to start. All of their products are designed to layer effortlessly. They are an incredible like on-ramp to starting with skincare. All of their formulas are certified safe for sensitive skin. They're dermatologist tested, and they're free from over 1,500 irritating ingredients. Customers consistently rave about how their skin is smoother, firmer, healthier looking, even at 3 a.m. And the results get better with time. I can say this, I've been using OneSkin now for, I think, 18 months. I just really love it. And I do get compliments on my skin. And like, I don't know, I'm not super scared about getting wrinkles or like having a skin that looks my age, but it does feel nice just to have skin that feels like bright and healthy. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS01 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, OneSkin is making it even easier to stay consistent with 15% off when you use code CULTURE at oneskin.co/culture. That's 15% off with code CULTURE. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them that we sent you. Okay, so we're going to talk about the industry now. This is a version of a question we got many times because many, many people in our audience listen to Fated Mates.
That's so great. I love that crossover. My people.
Let's hear from Margie.
I heard you discuss this on Fated Mates in July and haven't stopped thinking about it. Why don't audiobook narrators get royalties, and where should the line be between creative work that gets royalties or that doesn't? How can an independent audiobook company gain an audience? How does your company, Audiobrary, work for the end consumer? Also, what is the latest on whether people are actually talking faster today or whether producers want narrators to speak faster since many audiobook listeners listen at faster speeds?
All very good questions. So yes. Okay. So I don't know. I cannot come up with a good answer for why narrators shouldn't get royalties. Every time I have asked publishers why they don't pay narrators royalties, I have just been told no one does. That's just the way it is.
Totally.
And so I just said, well, then what I'm hearing is I need to start my own audio publishing company and do it so that you can't say no one does it anymore. That was the only recourse I could come up with. So for the end consumer, it doesn't affect you. Like our books, with the way that Audiobrary works. So yes, we are an audio publisher that licenses audio rights from authors or publishers to create audio versions of books. We also do some original content as well. But in the audiobook landscape, our books, because I don't believe in gatekeeping, are available wherever you get your audiobooks. But we are also a direct-to-consumer retailer. So when you go and you purchase or rent, we started rentals through the Audiobrary website, all of that money is going into the pockets of the people who actually created it. So us as the audio publisher, the author, and the narrator. We also provide bonus material like interviews and bloopers or just interesting things like that on Audiobrary. So you can get the books anywhere, but when you purchase through Audiobrary, it really goes into the pockets of the people who made it. And the difference is you would just then be listening in the Audiobrary app. So you purchase on the website and it goes into the app. The main thing that I have been, like the Spotify thing, right?
Yeah.
This is great that most listened to narrator globally. It means literally nothing to me financially.
Right.
Which is bonkers.
Yeah.
And coming out of an acting background where I still get royalties or residuals for Lifetime movies I made when I was 12, I cannot reconcile how, if the author continues to make money and the publisher is continuing to make money, why would I not be continuing to make money when in many cases, my name is attached to a book, helps people find the book. you know?
Yep.
So I don't know where the line is. I mean, I know that Jenny Croft, who's a translator, had kind of had the same fight for translators, like
Yes.
credit on the cover
Yep.
and royalties. And it's absolutely also ridiculous to me that they didn't until Jenny started doing this fight. You know, great cover artists. I personally, from a publishing perspective, I've always wondered why editors don't necessarily get a portion of a book's success. I think what they're incentivized to do is eventually, if you have enough success, you will become a publisher in your own, like we'll give you an imprint, right?
Yeah.
But I have a lot of questions about how people should be compensated in this industry. But right now I can only focus on narrators. Do you have opinions about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me as an author, the only books that I've earned out is when you meet what you were paid for the book, your advance, and then you are paid royalties after that. And to be clear, like the royalties that I get are like $500 every 6 months. Like they are not like a massive amount. But the only way that the way that I've earned out is when I was paid relatively little. So like I get $500 every 6 months on Scandals of Classic Hollywood, my first book. I was paid $12,000 for that book.
Right.
And so sometimes I think like what royalties work well for are scenarios where a book becomes massive.
It's in the case of success.
Right.
And I think that's what it comes down to is in the same way that an author gets an advance for the book, I also get paid for my time to do the book.
Yep.
Now, again, this is the biggest challenge that we have is that I was doing 70 books a year. Audiobook narration is not well paid to begin with. A lot of people think my buyout rate should be massive. It's not. And so all I'm asking for is in the case of, or books that have second lives, like there's this beautiful YA book I did years ago called Girl in Pieces that has had this like new life because of TikTok. And I'm so happy for the author because it's such a good book. But it's like also now my status as a narrator is very different than it was when I first recorded that book.
Yep.
And it's just about equity. That's it. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm the reason that people buy these audiobooks, especially in the case of somebody like Kristen Hanna or Emily Henry.
Yeah.
But I do know for a fact, like I've talked very clearly with Emily and Taylor Jenkins Reid about this, like at the beginning of their career, people were finding them through me because I was narrating their books.
Right.
And it's just the ethical thing to do. It's just the right thing to do because especially as we move into this new future where a lot of audiobook narration, I think, is going to be synthetic. So we have a possibility of narrators are out of a job and yet the whole catalog that they've spent 20 years recording is still selling and is still making other people money except for them.
Right. Well, and this also, I think like the SAG model, Screen Actors Guild model, is really, I think, an interesting one to consider because part of the setup is like at least how it has been historically before streaming came in and fucked all this up.
Right.
Is that okay? So you work and you do like let's say you're in a really massive like sitcom or even like a middling sitcom, and maybe you don't have like a ton of work. Maybe you do like supporting roles, like the rest. You're a working actor. How do you retire? In part through the residuals from that.
Yes.
That text, right? It's what makes it possible to like retire with grace, right?
And I think that's also kind of the thing is as I've been doing this long enough and I have friends who are older and they are now trying to retire and it's like you still see them trying to record or trying to get enough books to keep recording. I'm like, you shouldn't have to do this.
Right.
Like, thank God we unionized the industry about 10 years ago. So our earnings, for the most part, do go into pension and health for SAG-AFTRA. So at least that. But audiobooks publishers made $2.5 billion on audiobooks last year. It's had double-digit growth year over year for the last decade. And it's not like narrator rates have gone up double-digit year over year for the last decade. Yeah. And we're also going to be the first people replaced. And it's like, I'm trying to create a sustainable future for this because no one else has any incentive to. The publishers have every incentive to move over into digital voice, to just like streamline the process, get rid of us. And I they want to keep us. They know the product is better. They know it means something, but it's so cheap.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to keep doing this job.
Yeah.
I know that there's listeners who want this, and I don't know how else to create a sustainable career unless we do it this way.
Right. Well, and I'm also seeing so many more Hollywood stars, which like you have relation to this, right? Like
Yeah.
Hollywood stars who are who are now narrating books. And to me, that doesn't say like, oh, well, if they should get points, right? But like no one else should. To me, that says this is a job like acting. This is acting.
Yes,
this is voice acting.
It is acting. And I don't understand. Someone needs to explain to me. I've been saying this for years, but I don't understand how we can be at the crossroads of acting, where you get residuals, and publishing, where you get royalties, and yet somehow we don't get either. I just will never understand this. I'm sorry, I can hear my voice pitching up, but like that's why people ask me like, are you entrepreneurial? Like, have you always wanted? I'm like, no, left to my own devices. I just want to write and I want to record, but I was filled with so much righteous rage that it had nowhere to go. I had to do this.
Yeah. No, and the whole sustainability thing, I think, is part of it, right? It's like
journalism. I mean, right?
Yeah, totally. Like when you feel that you have been in this precarious business, when you were like so scared that the other shoe was going to drop, that you were recording 70 books a year.
Yeah.
And also writing a book just in case, right? Like, because who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, if that's the scenario. And you also, it's not just like you want to get your own bag and run. It's like, how can I make this a more sustainable career for other people?
Yes, I mean, right now the way Audiobrary is going, because we're not taking money, because I don't want someone else telling me how to do this right now. I want to see if the way I want to do things is viable or not. It may not be. This is all an experiment, but as a result, we're self-funding this, my husband and I, and so we're starting out obviously with the books that I'm recording most of our product because I'm cheap. So, but the whole goal is eventually, yes, like telling authors, if you believe in this, like bring us your stuff, bring us even your ready-made audiobooks. We're about to open up the platform to people who already have existing books, because we can do we can be a retailer for you.
Yeah.
If you believe in giving your narrators royalties, like please join us. That's how it's a big experiment, and it's a gamble, and it's one I was willing to take because otherwise I was going to have to stop doing it. I couldn't keep doing it. It's not worth my time. I need to write. If I'm looking at future financial security, that comes through writing another book. That doesn't come from narrating another book.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Right. And I think most people would never assume that about someone in your position.
No, I know.
Right?
And that's what's the joke. This year has been, it's an embarrassment of riches and accolades and stuff. And it has not changed anything materially at all. And I don't know another industry where that's true.
I mean, I think kind of music, right?
Maybe.
Just in terms of like, you can be the most listened to on Spotify, and that would not actually significantly change your material position unless you're also touring and selling merch.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Okay, so last question. We're going to get into my least favorite part of all of this, which is synthetic voice. This question comes from Serafina, and Melody's going to read it.
How big a problem is synthetic voice being sold as having been done by a human? I don't have any proof, but one of the books I've listened to recently had huge sections that sounded robotic, for lack of a better word. Maybe not the entire book, but most of the non-dialogue sections. Certain phrases sounded strangely paced with odd breaks, but identical when the phrase was repeated. It's the first time I've had this happen with an audiobook, and it was very jarring. The right voice with the right book means I'll listen to it again and again, whereas the wrong voice can make it unlistenable for me. So is using a real human voice to feed an algorithm to then quote unquote read the rest of the book a known thing?
I have no idea. That's very interesting. I have not personally encountered that yet. Have you?
I have not encountered something like this, but it actually makes a ton of sense to me. Like maybe they had someone read a couple of chapters.
Right. You can do this now. I mean, you can voice clone off of like 2 sentences.
Right.
So maybe, but so to your point, the labeling is really what we're up against. That's what it comes down to. I think people probably think I have a stronger opinion about synthetic voice than I do. My whole take on this is to be combative is not helpful. Audiobrary and kind of like our philosophy around this is that it's actually been helpful in terms of creating a comparison.
Yeah.
So when you hear synthetic voice, and especially as it gets better, I think we have to accept that we're going to get to the point where we can't necessarily tell the difference. But I think there's still an audience for people who know the difference and who want to know that they are having human narration. So that's the audience I'm serving. These are for people who, these are like the vinyl records people. And it's incredibly disruptive to the industry, just to be clear. And again, because of what we're talking about, because the financial compensation is so bad already, that any loss of work is felt in the industry. I see a value to it for, as we were talking about earlier, accessibility reasons, and being able to have quality synthetic voice is not a bad idea. It's anything that's better than putting it through like your Alexa reader. But it's, to me, a very different product. It's just a different product. And what we offer is human interpretation and human performance. And it'll never do that. I mean, it doesn't even know what it's saying. It doesn't think about the book. It doesn't, to your point from earlier, it doesn't read the book. It doesn't know how to tell you the story. It's just really sophisticated text to speech. So labeling is a huge issue. I mean, Audible, I think, finally was like, we have to make sure these things are labeled virtual voice, but who's checking this? Like, as they get more sophisticated and people are just uploading it through ACX, let's say, which is how indie people put their books on Audible, is this all being manually checked? Is someone going to have to be able to listen and say, ooh, this sounds synthy?
Right.
Or like, what's the protocol here, guys? All I know is that, for all I can say is for Audiobrary, it's a hard no. We won't accept it. So, but when you've got these larger platforms, this is going to be a massive headache for them as well as for listeners to try to swim through it.
I think my issue with increasing use of voice to text, like sophisticated voice to text, is just creep in terms of like, oh yeah, it's totally normal that we are like using this instead of using actual voices, right? Like people, I think, if they listen to this interview, they would be like, oh, it is kind of fucking weird that on Substack you press this button and you get to choose whether it's like sophisticated man or sophisticated lady who is reading out your newsletter, right? And like I couldn't turn that off. But people got used to it because they're like, oh, what a nice little thing, right? Convenience trumps what your other ethical, like your best intentions in terms of what you would like to consume. And so how that like gradually erodes. And we certainly saw this happen with music too, right? Like the convenience of having every single album ever available, which to us even, when we were in college was unthinkable.
No,
like we even had Napster and LimeWire. we had to work.
We waited 8 hours only to realize that we downloaded the Korean karaoke version accidentally,
and also got like 17 viruses on it, and a cease and desist from the University of Oregon.
Memories. No, that's very, very true, and I think that this is why like I've been so outspoken about talking about the humans behind this work, because first of all, so many people authors don't even know narrators don't get royalties, right? So we're starting from that, and it is such an invisible job, and that makes us very replaceable.
Yeah.
Very few people actually look at who is narrating their book, the name. Very few people actually follow narrators. They certainly don't know what we look like. They certainly don't know anything about us. And so there is an invisibility there that is dangerous to, as you said, that creep of just replacement. And I think that we're in a place of replication is something that is kind of in the natural course of things, but replacement is the problem.
Yeah.
And not to mention that most of these models are obviously built on stolen labor, and
exactly.
The ethics around that are a nightmare. But it's also just not a pleasant listening experience. Like it's just not. I mean, people are very impressed with some of it, which I understand because there's an uncanny valley part of it where you're like, oh wow, it really does sound kind of human. Like, well, try listening to it for 11 hours. It's painful.
Seriously. Well, it's like I listened to this great episode of Switched on Pop recently about this AI generated pop song or country song that like it's a curiosity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, like I listened to it and it's Uncanny Valley, and I'm like, this is so derivative. Like even the pop music that I feel on the radio that I'm like, oh, this is just recycling something. It still has aura, right?
Yes.
In a way that this other stuff does
It's
not.
also there's no risk. Like my husband talks about this a lot where, if you had like the robot Olympics and you watch a robot do like the balance beam, there is that first moment you're like, holy shit, a robot's on a balance beam. Like, wow, a dog is walking around on its hind legs. But there's no risk. Or if there is, it's all programmed. So is it going to fall? Is it not going to fall? I don't care. The thing that keeps us engaged and watching is that human fallibility. And it's the same thing with a performance. That's what makes theater so engaging is it's like, are they going to pull this off?
Right.
There's a real white knuckling through a lot of performance. And I think that's the truly human element that can't be replicated because its job is to just be perfect and to just do the thing it's programmed to do. But that's not engaging to a listener, watcher, viewer, whatever. We like to see the risk.
Yes. Well, and that I think the risk is part of that larger understanding of aura that is impossible to describe or to value in some ways, right? Because it's ineffable.
Absolutely.
You cannot monetize it save to pay actual humans, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yes. What are some projects that you're working on right now that you're excited about?
So I'm doing the new Frida McFadden book. I'd never done a Frida McFadden before. So I feel like, I know. I was like, oh yes, finally, I got to be one of the cool kids. And then a guy I know, we met at Breadloaf Writers Conference like 10 years ago, Stephen Fishback. He has a history in reality television, and he's been working on a book about reality TV since we knew each other 10 years ago. And it finally is coming out, and I'm narrating part of it, and it's wonderful. And it's such a good hang. It's great. We have a lot of Audiobrary stuff coming up, which we haven't quite announced yet, but there's a new historical by J.B. Harris, a debut novelist called The Immigrant's Wife. And it's like unbelievably prescient because not only is it 1913 Boston and the kind of immigrant experience, but also pandemic and vaccine and public health stuff. And she just like hit it out of the park. It feels very Kristen Hanna to me. That's what I like about this book. Yeah. So yeah, there's just like there's so much in the hopper. I'm trying to even think of, because publishing timelines.
I know.
I like live in the future. So what is even?
No, that's great. That's great.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And where can people find you if they want to hear more from you, about you, all of that sort of?
Well, I'm most active on Instagram at just Julia Whelan. Also on Twitter, or not Twitter. Jesus. I Irish goodbye Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anymore. Same. Which was you were like one of the best parts of old school Twitter. It was so sad. I know TikTok is the one I meant.
Yeah.
As you can tell, super, super up on the TikTok. But honestly, sign up for the Audiobrary newsletter because that's my only newsletter, and that's where I send out everything from like appearances, events, and we don't spam you because I don't have the time to spam you. So we only send out emails when there's like a new release coming or we're doing a sale or something cool has dropped on this website. So it's a very low impact newsletter follow.
Love it. We will link very prominently.
Oh, thank you.
This has been a true pleasure. I really thank you so much.
Like I said, for me too, I've been a fan for so long, and so this was just so much fun.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Study Podcast. Today, paid subscribers got a bonus conversation about whether and how to tell your friends you think their use of AI is problematic. If you want to support the show and always get that juicy bonus content, head to patreon.com/culturestudy. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. There's also a much better deal if you're already a subscriber to the newsletter, and you'll get ad-free episodes, an exclusive advice time segment, and weekly discussion threads for each episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts because we have so many great episodes in the works, and I promise you don't want to miss any of them. If you want to suggest a topic, ask a question about the culture that surrounds you, or submit a question for our subscriber-only advice time segment, go to our Google forum at tinyurl.com/culturestudypod or check the show notes for a link. The Culture Study Podcast is produced by me, Anne Helen Peterson, and Melody Rowell. Our music is by Poddington Bear. You can find me on Instagram at Anne Helen Peterson, Melody at Melodious47, and the show at Culture Study Pod. And guess what? We have someone who's helping us with social media, so we're actually going to have posts there. Go check it out.